Starting today, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again the work of remaking America.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, Jews and Hindus, and non-believers. We are shaped by every language and culture.
Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
Not only to create new jobs, but to lay a new foundation for growth. We will build the roads and bridges, the electric grids and digital lines that feed our commerce and bind us together.
Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God.
All right, you get the picture. Okay, he thought he was in the Ten Commandments. Welcome to the Savage Nation. You know, my fear of crowds goes back to my childhood. I remember as a little child being taken to parades by my mother, and I always feared parades because I looked up at the faces of the people as the parade went by, and I saw weirdness on the faces of people in the crowd now. And what I was seeing as a child without understanding it were the faces of mass hysteria. Mass hysteria is the operational phrase for today because Obama has induced mass hysteria with help from the media and Hollywood. Now, I don't want to make a comparison to Leni Riefenstahl and Adolf Hitler because there's no comparison in terms of politics. However, in terms of manipulating the masses, there is a comparison. Only my fear is that even Hitler didn't have the TV media at that time, while Obama does. And I think that explains in part the Obama mania that we were witnessing. In 1841, there was a British journalist named Charles Mackey, and he wrote a book entitled The Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. I want to read the title of that book again, 1841, The Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And what he was writing about was a phenomenon of the 1630s in Holland called tulipomania. Tulipomania may have been the first recorded advent of a speculative bubble. And what happened was the Dutch were bidding on the prices of tulips higher and higher and higher until tulips, the bulbs, started to sell for as much as 10 times what the average worker in Holland made. Now, anyone who has such madness in them, based upon tulipomania in that case, can understand what I'm talking about here. Here we have a man trumpeted as the next Messiah. I heard a local talk show host in San Francisco as I was driving home from the studio last night, whose name rhymes with Queen, going on and on about how Barack Obama was as good as FDR and Lincoln and JFK combined. Now, I can't believe this because the man hasn't yet been president. I have no idea how they can compare an unknown man to FDR and Lincoln and JFK. I thought that a man was judged after he became president by his policies and by his performance, not before. But you see, tulipomania was based upon the madness of crowds and popular delusions. Obama-mania is also based upon the madness of crowds and popular delusions. The gays have gone crazy for Obama. The blacks have gone crazy for Obama. The hard left has gone crazy for Obama. And that includes just about everybody in the midstream media. And I am telling you that we are on the verge of an unknown. It is a black box where we are going, and I don't mean that in any racial sense. I mean in the sense of a black box. Nobody knows what this man is going to do because nobody knows what he stands for unless you look at his voting record. And if you look at his voting record, you should be very frightened indeed. He is the most far-left senator in American history. And here, because of George Bush and John McCain, we have the most far-left president in American history thrust upon the American people. And I want to ask you today a few questions on the Savage Nation. I want to ask you a few questions. If you are a conservative, what do you most fear about the Obama administration? What do you fear most that he might do? And liberals, if you're listening to the Savage Nation, as I know many of you do, what really are your greatest hopes for the Obama administration? Because I don't see any hope here. I see hype. Where you see hope, I see hype. Where I see hype, you see hope. And believe me, I can look through it and see it the way it is. You just are a little slower than I am in seeing hype. For example, maybe I'll surprise you with this one. Today, Dick Cheney appeared in a wheelchair, which I thought was remarkable. They claim he pulled a muscle in his back. But what's amazing about it is that not only was he in a wheelchair, but he made himself look frail and crumpled up. For a second, a fleeting second, I thought Cheney was imitating FDR. I thought, here is a power-mad lunatic, Dr. Strangelove, for many of you, who was so obsessed with losing power, and losing power to an upstart liberal at that he took on the mantle of FDR to almost grab some of the spotlight. But it got crazier than that. Cheney was wheeled to his bulletproof limousine after all of the hoopla, and strangely enough, he spryly jumped into the limousine on his own. So help me God, that's what I saw. Cheney was wheeled, looking frail and crippled, blanket over his legs like FDR. But the minute he was wheeled up to the door of the limo, I don't know if anyone saw this but me. See, I see when the king has no clothes. He hopped spryly into the limousine. It was an act, in my opinion. Now, one of the reasons he did it was because he was his power was lost. Another reason was he wanted to create sympathy for himself, so he's not called up on war crimes charges or such. That's what I believe Cheney was doing today. There was some other interesting phenomena today at the coronation. The most interesting to me was the vying for the spotlight by Dianne Feinstein. I don't know who else saw this, but there wasn't one person in the media who saw what I'm about to tell you went on. It was shortly after the speech. Bush was sort of leading a procession out of the speech area to wherever they go. And strangely enough, behind him was Dianne Feinstein, and trailing him was Barack Obama. When Barack Obama sped up by foot and with a thrust of his hips to the right, pushed Dianne Feinstein out of the way and took his rightly place behind George Bush. I think the woman is crazy. I think the madness of Dianne Feinstein, the power madness, Lord Acton said power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Dianne Feinstein is absolutely corrupt, and she's absolutely insane. Now, earlier on, I don't know if you noticed this, when Obama was walking towards the podium, Dianne Feinstein was crawling right up his tailpipe. She was behind him, inches behind him, not feet behind him. So much so that a Marine Guard had to intervene between Obama and Dianne Feinstein. What in the world do you think Dianne Feinstein was saying with her body language today? There were some other interesting statements today that were very worrisome, by the way. When Barack Obama said, "We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, and Jews," I almost fell out of my chair. So far as I know, this nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles and values, not on Muslim Christian values. Now, what was he trying to say to us? I guess he was paying homage to his own 50% of his own faith. You notice today that the name Barack Hussein Obama came up only once, and it depended upon where you were. It depended upon where you were at the time. Is he Barack Hussein Obama, or is it Barack Obama? Is it BHO or BO? I'll be right back. Savage.